You came to decide to run for this position? Was it a light bulb going off on your head? Did somebody twist your arm? What happened that you said, I'm in this race?
There are two reasons. The first reason is I've practiced law for 28 years with the exception of the 8 years I've been on the bench. And where, as a judge, you can't practice law under state law. But for the other 20 years, I've practiced in 5 of the 6 counties that make up this 5th District Court of Appeals. The only county I've never really practiced in is Grayson County. And frankly, it's just too far up north, and it's not worth my time and trouble, so to speak, to go up there and argue some types of cases. But what I have noticed is that in a lot of these courts and a lot of these counties, first off, in Dallas County, we have nothing but Democrat judges. They do not believe in the rule of law. Let me repeat that. They do not believe in the rule of law. They are loath to follow the Republican legislature and a Republican governor. And believe me, they will manipulate rulings and cases either for partisan reasons or for ideological reasons or what have you, to the point that they punish lawyers. They punish Republican conservative lawyers. I've been doing this for 28 years, and I know exactly when I walk into a courtroom what I'm entitled to as a matter of law, and I know what I'm not entitled to. And I don't walk into courtrooms and ask a judge to give me or rule in my favor when I'm not entitled to that on behalf of my client. The first problem is we have a whole bunch of judges in Dallas County that are not following the law, pure and simple. Second reason is I looked in basically July or August, and I realized that some of the other candidates in this race lacked some of the experience that I had. Now, it's hard to sit up here and tout or toot your own horn without having trying to convey some humility. But one candidate has never practiced civil law that's in this race. So if your family member has a family law case and their children were taken from them wrongfully, and that person, that candidate, has never handled a family law case, has been a criminal attorney, do you want them judging that family law case? My answer to you is, I think not if you have a choice with someone who has family law and civil experience. Flip side of the coin is true for one of the other candidates. And they're both fine people. It's not meant to be a character assassination. It's all about experience and who's going to be best qualified to judge what happens in the trial courts. That's what appellate judges do. They look over trial court judges' shoulders to make sure that the parties in the cases got due process and equal protection. In other words, they got a fair trial. One of the other candidates never stepped foot in a criminal courthouse. Never. So if your loved one is wrongfully convicted, and make no mistake about it, many people do get wrongfully convicted in criminal courts. I was around with the fake drug scandal where the Dallas District Attorney sent 36 people to prison for possessing sheetrock. We lost Dallas County because the DA didn't have the integrity to do the right thing. He wanted to be tough on crime, and what he was is tough on innocent people. We don't prosecute the innocent. That's not our legal system. So I have been practicing criminal law 6.5 years as a prosecutor at Dallas, where I specialized in prosecuting child abusers, drug dealers, and white-collar embezzlers. Also general crimes for a certain period of time, like robberies, murders, aggravated rapes, or sexual assaults. But after a judge passed away, I was appointed as a criminal court judge at the age of 34. And I did that for 8.5 years. 25,000 cases I resolved, 1,000 trials I presided over, 500 jury, 500 non-jury. I was appealed 100 times to these appellate courts, to the court I'm actually running for, believe it or not. And I was reversed once by the Texarkana Court of Appeals. So, I think that's a pretty good record. Then when I went into private practice 12 years ago, I didn't want to do just one type of case. I find that to be boring, frankly. So I educated myself. I went back to school, so to speak, and I learned civil law. I learned family, I've learned probate, and I've learned business transactions. I'm the only candidate that's done every area of law that this Court of Appeals handles. And for that reason, I felt like, with all due humility, I felt like I was a better qualified candidate that could serve the public, to serve you in this capacity. So those are the two reasons why I'm running for this office.
Well, you covered about 3 or 4 of my questions in that answer, but that's good, because you guys aren't here to hear me talk, you're here to hear the candidates talk. So you served as a judge for how long?
8.5 years.
And during that time, any episodes where you had to recuse yourself or had a case reassigned?
Recused? I'm trying to think. You'll have to bear with me, because I was appointed in 1997 and I served through December of 2005, so it's been a while. A judge recuses themselves when they cannot be impartial. If you have children and they say, well, that's not fair, believe me, parents and judges aren't there to be fair. A judge is there to be impartial. I've never recused myself in any case because of a lack of impartiality. If someone else came to me and said, we think it looks like you might not be able to be impartial, the appearance of impartiality, my comment was, no problem. You're welcome to take this case to another court, because it's the process that's important. It's not the judge's feelings or their ego that should matter. Other than that, and I handled numerous high-profile cases. I had, for example, the prostitute that accused Michael Irvin of sexually assaulting her, and then she got prosecuted for perjury. I handled that case. I had the mayor of Rowlett got a DWI. I handled that case. I handled a Irving City Council that had gotten a DWI. And I also was assigned and presided over a case with one of the Dallas Cowboys. So as far as recusing myself, the answer is I probably did on some 1 or 2 cases, but it was because the defense attorney requested it, and my comment was, not a problem. You want another judge to hear this? That's fine.
Are there any conflicts of interest that you anticipate you might encounter were you to be elected to this position? Cases where you know ahead of time that you would have to say, no, I can't be part of this?
The greatest possibility of a conflict of interest when you're in private practice is hearing a case that a member of your law firm had. And this Judicial Conduct Commission, which oversees judges, as well as the State Bar of Texas, has a judicial section, and they write ethics opinions. My law firm is composed of 3 or 4 attorneys, depending on the day of the week, and several support staff. So obviously, if I'm elected in November, and I assume the bench on January 1st, I will not hear any cases ever that were ever connected with the firm, my law firm, for 12 years. As far as having a relationship with anybody who has somehow, some way, let's just talk about judicial contributions, okay? I'm self-funding this race. I'm not relying on any high-dollar contributions, and my integrity is not for sale. Period. End of story. So I don't anticipate having any conflicts on cases or other law firms, and my finances are such that my retirement is actually with the state of Texas, and then I have savings, and there are special rules where you can be disqualified if you owned a couple of $1 million worth of AT&T stock. You don't get to sit on an AT&T case. You don't have to worry about that with me.
And you actually probably gave a partial answer to one of my concluding questions, and I'll just let the audience know as well. You may have noticed I didn't ask as many questions this time as I have before. I've got my little timer going. If the answers go long, or if the answers answer other questions that I would have asked, then I skip those questions. So that's why there weren't quite as many questions. But the summary question statement: when a person goes into the ballot box, and they've got to push that button, and I'm asking for a short answer to this one. Why you? Of the candidates listed there, why push that button?
Well, and the other two candidates, like I said, are fine people, but we as Republicans should not be electing people for office just because we know them or we like them. We as Republicans believe in competent government, not political patronage. So, when it comes down to who has the most judicial experience, with all due humility, I do. 8.5 years as a county criminal court judge. When it comes down to who has the most appellate experience, I do. I've had more than 30 cases in 3 different state courts of appeals, and even the highest 2 courts, including the Supreme Court of Texas and the Court of Criminal Appeals. I've argued 4 cases. You have to be invited by this appellate court. You don't have a right to just show up and say, I want an argument.
Now remember, this was a short answer.
I've argued twice in front of this court, the Dallas Court of Appeals, that Judge Francis was here earlier, Judge Molly Francis. And there you are. And sorry, I can't see that far anymore. And I've argued twice in front of the Fort Worth Court of Appeals, and I just got back from early December having been invited to argue in front of the United States 5th Circuit. That's the court in New Orleans that's 1 court below the U.S. Supreme Court. And you don't get to argue in front of them unless they invite you. And it's a privilege and an honor, sincerely, and I mean that with all due humility.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming.
Well, thank you so much for having me.